I call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Northfield Public School Board. Today is Monday, August 24th, and the time is 6 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The recording of this meeting will be posted on the district website as soon as possible. Welcome members of the community here tonight to observe the important work being done on behalf of all school district stakeholders. Dr. Anderson, we have some items in the table file. Will you update us?
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. In the table file this evening, you'll find an updated board meeting summary for the later school start times discussion, some personnel items, which include appointments, increased, decreased changes in assignment, and leaves of absences, as well as resignations, and then thirdly, financial reports for March and April 2026.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no objections, we will add these items to the agenda as we move forward. Okay, board members, please make sure your mic is on so Kelly can record your vote. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
Motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Maggie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. We're on to public comment, and we do have one person signed up, and so I will read our guidelines and then call the speaker up. This is an opportunity for residents, business and property owners, parents, guardians, students, and employees of the Northfield School District to address the board. All comments to the board must adhere to the guidelines set in place by District Policy 206 regarding public comment. This is not a time to debate an issue, but only for the board to hear your comments. You are prohibited from making comments about specific students, staff, and administrators. The board respects and values input, but when it relates to a specific individual or to a specific matter, this input must be heard by the appropriate personnel, including the building principal or superintendent, and not during an open meeting of the school board. You will be gabbled out of order if your comments are not in compliance with these guidelines. Please address the board from the podium. After being recognized by the chair, identify yourself and if you represent a group. We require that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes. You are not allowed to yield your time to another person. It is expected that members of the public will address their remarks with civility and respect. Personal attacks by anyone addressing the board are unacceptable. The board has allotted up to a total of 30 minutes for public comment at regular school board meetings. I will now begin to call those who have signed up to speak in the order in which they signed in. Vice Chair Corey Butler will monitor the speaker's time. He will signal each speaker with the time they have remaining at 1 minute, 30 seconds, and 10 seconds. Please make your comments as brief as possible, but no more than 3 minutes. And I now call Karen Mader. Thank you for signing up.
I think everybody here knows me except Dr. Anderson. So I'm Karen Mader. I live at Spruce Court, and it's an adjacent property to the high school. I'm a nurse, I'm a mom, I'm a grandma. Very active in gun violence prevention, so that's what my topic is. And last year, kudos to the District Youth Council. They did an amazing job of rebirthing sort of the student pledge against gun violence, just an awareness that's not how you settle arguments, and just reporting being more comfortable in reporting. I'm not really sure how the school district has moved forward with like anonymous reporting systems. I don't really know what's happened with that, but I'm active in Sandy Hook Promise, which has a hello week for the first part of the way, and they have know the signs, behavior changes. I mean, there's a lot of student engagement in all of those pieces. What I am talking about tonight is Be Smart. This is Be Smart Rollout Week for Moms Demand Action. It is an adult-focused action on securing firearms. 3/4 of the firearms that are used by adolescents come from either the family home or a friend's home. So secure storage is like the adult's responsibility. So that's really what this is about. This is Be Smart Week. It's preceding the school year. And again, I only had 4 brochures of what the District Youth Council did last year. It was amazing. We got permission to put it in a pamphlet form, and we handed out many of them at Pride in the Park. So I feel like we need the momentum going. All those District Youth Council kids graduate. So now how does that get sustained? So I think that's really, I just wanted you to know that you may see me again. Thanks.
Right. We are now on to item 4, which is our announcements and recognitions.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite parts of my work assignment, which is to recount for the community and for you all announcements and recognitions. I'm pleased to have a few this evening to share with you. First, 123 incoming kindergarten students completed Bridges to Kindergarten through Community Ed last week. Bridges to Kindergarten is a free summer program held at each of the 3 elementary schools for 1 week to help ease that transition to kindergarten. Many thanks to the district preschool and kindergarten teachers, community preschool teachers, and educational assistants who worked in this program this week. In fact, I had the chance on the 18th of August, courtesy of Principal Rich Torres, who took me to Mrs., I think I'm saying it's right, Heil's room, to visit with the young people. They were busy tracing letters, playing with rocks because kindergarten rocks, and using light brights to trace letters related to their names. And the excitement they had and the eagerness they had to share with this strange person in a navy blazer was fun to see. So I appreciated that. Another announcement is the community school report to the community was completed last month. The report details the results of last year's community school programming at Greenville Park Elementary, at Bridgewater Elementary and Spring Creek Elementary, and at the middle school. The report is in the process of being shared with all elementary and middle school families, and I just want to offer recognition and thanks to everyone who assisted with the report's completion. Thirdly, last week, the elementary schools held special events to welcome families to the new school year. Can you believe it? It's here now. And Spring Creek and Bridgewater had popsicles with the principal nights and had over 400 people in attendance. Greenville Parks PTO hosted a new family night for K and new families planning to attend this fall. And just, again, recognition and thanks to our school PTOs and our staff for supporting these events to build connections. So important in our field and certainly important this year as we start school. Another announcement is that Human Resources recently hosted 2 optional substitute orientation sessions and welcomed 50 attendees between those 2 sessions. The sessions provided an overview of substitute responsibilities and expectations, safety and security procedures, and a new frontline software program used by the district, at least in new ways. Thank you to everyone who took the time to attend and invest in being prepared for a successful school year. It takes so much to be prepared for a successful school year. This is but one facet, but we just appreciate the important role our subs play in supporting our students, our teachers, our schools across this district. I'd like to mention that we had our annual leadership retreat, our NFL lead retreat on August the 12th. District leadership gathered for that annual kickoff centered on this theme this year of connections, and leaders engaged in sessions on what we call Working Genius, which is a personality and leadership inventory in managing transitions, since we've had a lot of transitions in our system, both in personnel and in processes over the course of the last months, and to build capacity for shared efforts in leadership for the year ahead. One highlight was the overwhelming consensus on the theme that nearly every participant noted from our leadership team, paraphrased by, "It fits, I can use it," setting a powerful unified tone for our back-to-school season and demonstrating that our team is fully energized and aligned to our 2027 strategic plan. Finally, I'd like to recognize Emily Culver from the Healthy Community Initiative, HCI. We know that HCI is a major community partner for our district, and I'm enjoying learning about all the ways that that's true, from youth engagement programming to programs like the Torch program, to community initiatives, serving as a backbone for our Northfield Promise, and certainly partnerships. Frequently collaborating with the school district on various mailings and grants and family engagement efforts. And this morning, I had the opportunity to be with the district youth council meeting, where they did indeed talk about what Karen Mader talked about, related to the pledge last year that they did around gun violence. We, Chair Gonzalez George and I got to participate with 8 of our new, 6 new, but 2 returning youth council members this morning. And since it's still summer for them, we were impressed that they were already deeply engaged in activities when we arrived and fully participating. I would like to recognize those kiddos who put up with me talking at them for an extended length of time. One of the things we talked about was how do you identify when you're doing youth council leadership work? Do you identify as a leader, a contributor, a producer, not just an attender or a consumer? We talked about this lofty notion of commonwealth, that we cannot have enduring private wealth in our land without sufficient commonwealth. That's what the founders wrote about. So we were tackling that at 6 a.m. at 10 a.m. this morning. But I'd also like to recognize the chair who offered remarks to these young folks. Really, she set the stage at the Northfield Community Resource Center today, providing encouragement for these 8 young people in attendance. She encouraged their engaged participation in their community and lauded their decision to serve. And of course, she, by her presence, is a model of service like you all are. And so we had a chance to check in with some of those folks. So while Karen said those folks graduate every year, which they do, the returners were there, and I have every bit of confidence that we'll continue to be well served by the youth in this community because they participate in things like this. And so it was a really great way to start the week. And that concludes the announcements and recognitions.
Wonderful. Thank you, and thanks for the kind words. Item 5 tonight is our items for discussion and reports. And first up is Greenville Park Elementary School Improvement Showcase. And Principal Sam Richardson will present an overview of the school's successes and highlights from 2025-26 and the focus areas for the upcoming 26-27 school year. Welcome, Sam.
All right. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Anderson, thank you for having me here. It's pretty humbling to be here. This is the 10th time that I've presented to the board as a member of the Greenville Park community, and it's been an amazing journey, and I'm very proud to be a Gecko and a Raider. Also, I just want to note the new staff members and leadership that you met at your last board meeting have been outstanding and are doing an excellent job in their first 2 months in their positions, and so we continue to work together, high levels of collaboration, and aligning practices across buildings and departments. It's been great. So excited for this year to be able to work again with the talented students, staff, and families at Greenville Park. As always, we start with our strategic plan, and we know that this is kind of the heartbeat of all that we're doing in our schools each day and in this planning process. So preparing every student for lifelong success by developing critical thinkers who are curious and ready to engage in our society. Today, our strategic commitments that we'll focus on, primarily you'll see people, learner outcomes, equity, and partnerships, but I think you'll see all of these commitments that we've made blended through the different actions, steps, and celebrations that we have to share. Our district benchmarks, the ways that we're able to measure our growth towards our vision and mission success. You see those in a number of these. For the elementary school, connections being our theme. The second benchmark is a huge focus for the year, having students ready to be at grade level by the end of 3rd grade and 6th grade, and that third benchmark. 8 and 9, as we talk about our employees and our parent caregiver satisfaction, and as we talk about social emotional learning and health, that 4th and 5th benchmark also will apply quite a bit to what we're doing at the elementary level. In this school improvement plan tonight, we will be highlighting some of our success stories looking forward. What are those goals for the next steps, and how do they align with our district strategic plan? And then this plan our intent is that it will not just sit on a shelf or in a folder, but it will be inspiring action that will lead to aligned efforts this year as we prepare every student for lifelong success. Our goals, again, we're using the 80, 90, 100 framework, and I think these goals are very clear in that academic, SEL, and that overall growth and safety goal. They're also flexible. They allow our staff to make plans, action steps that fit for where they are. We know kindergarten and fifth grade have very different approaches to working with students as they're starting their academic career in elementary and getting ready to transition to the middle school. Also, I feel like this 80, 90, 100 framework is something that we can easily share with our parent groups, our families, and we intend to do that again this year as we communicate with those important stakeholders. As we move into highlights, we start with our academic success. Last year, we were at this time celebrating the first year of the Bridges Math implementation, and we shared that there was a success that we had not seen an implementation dip in the first year of having a new math program that teachers were learning about and students were adjusting to. This year, we have seen an additional increase in our achievement levels. We used FastBridge in the fall, winter, and spring, and that is an online platform that allows students to show what they know in broad math skills. Our third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade students are all, as we look at that total percentage for the grade level, they're all right around 80%. Place that into your narrative. And so we do not have our MCA scores yet, but this is a good indication for us that we're on the right track as students are continuing to learn with Number Corner, with some of those high leveraged instructional strategies. And we're excited to see those MCA results and what that will indicate about our continued growth. Also in the area of reading, we have FastBridge for the A reading tests, which are similar with the fall, winter, and spring. Our students in that area in third, fourth, and fifth grade, we had a range between 64.2 for our fifth graders in the percentile there, and then 69% for our fourth graders. And so this also gives us an indication that we're continuing to move our students closer and closer to that 80th percentile. We know we're not there yet, and so we're going to continue our efforts, but it is encouraging that the work that we've done with our reading training for teachers, the continued implementation of the foundational skills program, K-5 now, is having an impact for our students. Also, I would say a success continues to be the connection between the different service providers at our school. And so I talked last year about the ways in which our reading intervention support connects with classroom teachers. Our special education teams had a new model last year where they were banded K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and able to work closely with teams in collaboration. And then also this community with the partnerships. We have really talented people in our communities who can help provide tutoring. Our Reading Core program and Math Core provided another layer of academic support. And then Carleton and St. Olaf students continue to be regular visitors to our pods and classrooms and provide another way for students to learn, grow, and build confidence. Looking at our second highlight, this continues to be something with the theme this year of connections that really resonates with Greenville Park. We have continued to see strong parent, family, caregiver connections throughout the school year. And this is something that we have been intentional about, inviting families in. This year, our parent satisfaction survey results increased from 4.54 mean score to 4.59. That's the highest that we've had in the time that we've been doing the surveys at Greenville Park. Things that were noted by families, the maintenance of the building, the resources for their students to have in the learning process at school, and also the feeling that they were treated with respect at the school. So the different family engagement efforts that we have launched has hopefully been a big part of the result in that the increased score. Also, continuing to see true partnerships. Our community school with the after-school learning program and evening program offerings this past year, also working with our PTO, our Greenville Park PTO, to figure out ways to help students show what they can learn, what they can do. This picture here in the slide shows the Gecko Gallery, which I know I have talked about a few different times, but it continues to grow in popularity, and also it's one event that showcases every single student an artwork piece, a writing piece, something that they have created, and allows them to showcase that. So the Gecko Gallery is just one example of family engagement that has been really important to the work that we do to build and sustain and grow our community. Also, our staff feeling connected to their work, reporting a clear sense of purpose, and knowing that their work makes a positive difference for the students and families that they serve. These were the results from our employee engagement survey. Our overall score, the mean was 4.1. That's very consistent with the past few years. And just seeing those results, that has been really encouraging, heartwarming to know that the hard work, the talents that are shared with students and families, that the staff still feel that and know that they're making a difference, because they are. Our third highlight, this has been a big part of our work with the elementary schools and our district teams, and that is looking at social emotional learning. We have used a screener, an online tool called the SSIS, and that allows us to have students provide some feedback for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, take some survey questions and answer them. It also allows our teachers, kindergarten through 5th grade, to provide feedback in a survey format to help us understand where are our students as they approach the next grade level, and where are they at in terms of competency with their social emotional learning skills. This past year, 82.45% of students demonstrated competency according to the teacher ratings. Students themselves rated themselves slightly higher in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, which that's pretty normal for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. And this tells us that we're, again, on the way, not at 90% yet, so we're not finished with our work, but we see that we are within reach of that 90% goal. A few of the things that I think are important to know is that we continue to have curriculum. And this past year, we used the 2nd step curriculum, so students were receiving targeted instruction each week from teachers. And then we also had tiered supports built in. And I've talked about that in the past, but the way that both the SSIS information drives targeted interventions with our social worker, behavior coach, classroom teachers, and then also partnering with Fernbrook, our school-based mental health partner, has really helped with our students at Greenville Park. We also look for positives and ways to celebrate students when they are demonstrating positive behaviors and demonstrating the character traits that we teach and reinforce each month. So this past year, we had approximately 495 students. We had 552 Character Kit Awards that were delivered in grade level meetings where we are having an opportunity to teach, reteach those skills, and also share examples of where those skills are being shown in the school. School-wide opportunities to build empathy, kindness, community. We had an all-school read in January. The book that was selected, Lubna and Pebble, some teachers found a great way to introduce that book as a school-wide read aloud, and the lessons in there about empathy and kindness were outstanding. So, 3 highlight celebrations for Greenville Park. As we look ahead to the next year, our goals for the next year, we have our continued district goal of 80% for students to meet grade level and benchmarks in math and reading. So this year, we will be implementing a new reading curriculum, and that is going to be a phased implementation. So Into Reading is the name of the reading curriculum, and we have a large number of elementary teachers that are beginning that work. Teachers had piloted that curriculum in the spring last year and the winter, and they'll be working closely together to implement that. This will be the second year also that will have foundational skills curriculum, that Bridge to Read for K-3 as well. And so we'll be looking closely at our MCA results when they're available for both math and reading to determine our progress towards the 80% target for those students. Also in math, continuing to look at the Bridges curriculum implementation with an especially laser-like focus on student ownership and increasing the work that students do on deepening their understanding of math concepts. With that Bridges math curriculum in year 3, we want to continue to build on the success, and as we get more familiar with that, students now have been exposed to the vocabulary, to the different frameworks that come with Bridges Math. This will now be, for many of the students, this will be their third year with that math curriculum, and we are excited to see additional growth in that area. Our second goal for this coming year will be to continue to pursue that 90% target for social emotional learning. And we use the term social emotional behavioral health. So you'll see that SELBH in there as we continue to use that as well. This year we will be making a shift. I mentioned second step was last year, and this year we'll be using Character Strong curriculum. A team of teachers and district leaders worked through a process last spring led by Shane Beyer, Carrie Duba, and we were able to make a selection of Character Strong. And this will be a new curriculum. It will be very accessible for teachers to implement, and students, this will be something novel and new. The feedback from teachers that were piloting was that it was very engaging and that it felt like it blended in nicely with many of the things that Northfield elementary schools have already been doing. We also will be implementing Satchel Pulse as a new universal screener for SEL. And so the Satchel Pulse online platform will allow us to, again, have teacher and student survey information about how students are developing in their social emotional learning skills. And it also allows us, what this tool will do that's a little bit different from our SSIS tool, is it will allow us to take some additional actions. It's developed to provide tiered resources for schools to implement when needs are identified. And so that is something that also was thoroughly vetted by a team and will be a big part of our work to support this important area. At Greenville Park, we'll also continue our work to align and refine how we support SELBH, that systems analysis. Where are there areas that we can communicate more strongly with our teams? Where are there areas that there are practices that we've learned we can improve or tighten so that we can support students and staff better in this big effort? And then finally, our team is really committed to connecting parents and caregivers with this work. And so the 3 elementary principals have already received feedback from teacher leader teams about how we can connect families with this new Character Strong program, and also offer different opportunities for parents to learn alongside us. And so last year, for example, there were opportunities for parents to learn about how to navigate cell phone use for students at this age. We have other opportunities, I know, with this Character Strong curriculum. It's designed where there's parent letters, parent information, parent links, and resources and activities. So we'll be working on making sure that families are well involved in this process. As we look forward to the next year too, as I mentioned in one of our highlight sections was the parent caregiver and the employee engagement survey results that were very strong. We want to celebrate that, but we also don't want to rest on that positive result, so we do want to continue to improve. So some of the areas that we learned from our survey that were strong but maybe could be strengthened with the families, parent communication about student learning, notes, emails, and different communication tools that could help parents understand better where their students are learning. That's something that parents were asking for. And so what I would like to do with our team is continue to gather feedback from families to understand better how can we, in the right way and in the right timing, provide information about how students are learning and not just wait till November. We will have family conferences in November and in March with all the elementary schools, but there's so many more updates, data points, and celebrations that can be shared along the way. We want to make sure families know where their students are performing and how they can help them improve. And then with our staff, we continue to look at how we can involve staff in decision-making processes and give really valuable opportunities for staff input. That continues to be an area that we've talked about as administrators, and so we'll be looking at how can we develop more clarity around decision-making levels, how can we provide more communication inputs and opportunities for staff to give input, and then how can we also share with staff the results of decisions in ways that are honoring to the work that they're doing and also make sense given the different realities of the school. So really want to honor the important work of all of our employees and make sure that they have opportunities to share their genius and their talent there. So just a few photos before I thank you for giving me this opportunity to share about our school. But we have this excitement that you see up in the upper left corner, the excitement of starting the year off and coming back to school. You see the choir and the elementary school choirs. I'm always amazed at some of the different talents. We know students as readers, writers, mathematicians at school, and you have an opportunity to see some students that maybe have these abilities and amazing talents in other ways. The pride of the Greenville Park Geckos, that continues to be a strong piece as our friend with the flag shows. Some of the students that started out their journey at Greenville Park coming back to celebrate their graduation last year. And then a group of third graders showing some of those Character Kid Awards and Goal Getter Awards that we provide when they have demonstrated high levels of excellence in that area. So formally, thank you for allowing me to present on Greenville Park and questions.
Thank you so much, Sam. We're all proud to hear of your school community's accomplishments, so thank you for sharing that, and I love the graduation photo. Board members, do you have any questions or comments at this time? Okay, Maggie and then Amy.
Hi, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have two questions. One is about the SEL curriculum and the changes there. Can you talk a little bit about how you're going to be working with the other elementaries and kind of the alignment across those?
Absolutely. So right off the bat, the team of teacher leaders that offered to share their talents over the summer came together, led by Dr. Reichel, the elementary principals. We worked carefully with our teacher teams in this very room to design what the implementation would look like, and there were representatives from each of the elementary schools. And so we took that feedback and we worked with our leadership team then to determine how to put those practices into place. So the same things that are happening in the three schools, we're trying to stay very connected. The monthly themes are going to be the same. The teacher training is going to be the same. And we're going to continue to monitor progress on that.
Thank you. My other question is, I think it's been maybe 5-6 years since the new Greenville Park building opened. Can you just talk a little bit about some of the great things that are possible in that building? I think right now, as we're entering into a phase of construction on another building in the district, it might be helpful to hear about some of the great things in your building.
Yeah. So this will be the 7th year of the new building, and so that means in 2020, the fencing and dust and ground moving that's happening for the Reimagine project was happening at Greenville Park. I think some of the things that stand out to us have been the flexibility of the spaces and flexibility of the furniture, and so that was an intentional decision to be able to move, shift as learning needs changed, as programs changed, and so that's been a huge advantage for us to be able to do that. I think another piece has been just the way that we design the pods has freed teachers up to be able to have students work with small groups with a community volunteer or the reading corps tutors in that pod space, while they also continue to work on the classroom lessons. And then I think, probably, some of the pieces are those larger spaces. And so the Flex Lab is one. We do not interrupt our PE instructional space the same way we maybe did in the past, with the ability to have school pictures, dental clinic, different activities in that Flex Lab. And then the evening and the use for the community school or other groups, having that space in the cafeteria and in the gym after hours has been a real advantage.
Great questions. Thanks. Amy.
I have a couple of comments and then a couple of questions. First, I wanted to thank you for presenting to us tonight, and I wanted to second everything Claudia said. We're very proud of what you're doing with the school and the improvements that you're making in the teaching and with the kids, and how everything's just moving in the right direction. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
My second comment is, thank you for the photos. I'm a photo person, and you have some really nice photos in here. And whoever took them, kudos to them. There are some really good ones. So
Okay, I'll pass it on.
okay, and then I have my two questions. So my first question is, you were talking about the new reading curriculum, and I'm wondering how that relates to all of the training and everything that the teachers went through a few years ago, and how we came about with a new curriculum. If you could just tell me the connections there.
Yeah, so I think the best way to say that would be that the training in the science of reading really helped a few fronts. One, it helped teachers recognize what would be those critical elements of a strong literacy curriculum. It also allowed for, I think anytime you have new learning or a new implementation, it allows for a lot of thought exchange. And so as the teachers were working with our leaders, noticing areas that might not be as strong. Also, the READ Act has pushed school districts to continue to review and revise what we're doing with students. And so we're always looking at all of those components that we would want for strong readers and what we would want them to be learning about. So everything from, like I mentioned, those foundational skills, opportunities to have knowledge building, vocabulary, and to have that in a way that is really cohesive and effective. So lots of research, lots of trials, and we're also looking forward to having new leaders here who will help us move that forward.
Are all the elementary schools implementing the same curriculum?
Yes, so this is another practice that we're aligning across the schools. So leaders from all schools were here on Thursday in this very space working through what will be those first steps for this phase 1 implementation. And the idea is that students will, in those classes of those teachers will receive this year. All students, K-5, would receive that in the second year of the implementation that'd be 27, 28.
And my second question is, could you tell me a little bit about how the social and emotional learning and behavior health, how is that measured? I get how math is measured and how reading is measured, but I don't understand how you determine levels with that.
Sure. So I think when you look at SEL screeners, typically they're asking survey questions, and I think for teachers, the questions you'll notice that they're trying to ask about a number of different behaviors that are observable, and at times they're asking for some teacher perception about things that might not be as observable. With student surveys, you can actually have the students indicate how they feel. Now that's 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade where they have an opportunity to share their perception about how their behavior is and how they're feeling about themselves and their school, how connected, those types of things. So you can get a generalized score with a series of questions. We're also doing things like observing behavior. We're also doing things where teachers are knowing their students really well. And so when they have, at Greenville Park, teachers will hold a morning meeting at the beginning of the day. Their focus is on building connections with students, helping students know them better and trust them as they build that foundation for the year, but they're also helping students get to know each other better. And you'll be really impressed with how well the teachers know the children in their classroom. The students that are a little timid to share in front of the group, or maybe students that have a phobia of some type, those types of anecdotal pieces blend in as well. So we don't want to ever say that SEL is just defined by a number, but we do use that survey to gather some of that information and triangulate it with what we know about students.
So what percentage of the score, if they get a score, is based on teacher observation, and what percentage is on filling out a quiz or something? How does that work?
So the one that I shared with you tonight, that was the teacher's perception of student social skills for kindergarten through 5th grade. And so that part is to give you a concrete example of a number, that would be that piece. There's other components to both SSIS and Satchel Pulse that allow you to look at other things like students' perceived stress level, and then externalizing or internalizing behaviors, things that are very observable in the classroom and things that wouldn't be as observable, like possibly some anxiety or some fears. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Right.
Good evening, Sam. Always good to see you.
you.
A few questions and comments kind of bouncing around, but just a couple observations first. So, Bridges to Math, I've had a student that's done it for 2 years, and it's been a great experience. Anecdotally, great for us. Obviously, can't speak to other families and caretakers and students, but good for us. So, really enjoyed it, and the worksheets were great. It was good to work through them. So really appreciate that. I know you said the MCA scores are still embargoed now. Used to be June 30th was kind of the deadline for that, and that's kind of the last several years it's not been that. When do you think we can anticipate seeing those scores?
I believe the exact date was shared. I think Dr. Anderson might know, but I believe it's later in September this year.
So even later than
That
usual.
mid-September.
Yeah, we'll confirm the date. Get it to you.
And I trust Dr. Anderson will have a report back to the board on district-wide scores.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. And then I also want to, you made remark about the Greenville PTO and the contributions they make to the community as well as other folks involved. So I don't know how often people actually look at the gifts that we get as a district. We approve it as a board, but I would encourage the community to go look at them. Greenville PTO, and tonight we're going to approve the acceptance of more than $9,000 from PTO to help teachers' funds for supplies and other items. So I think that's vitally important to point out that there's a lot of contributions. I'd also say tonight we have the Rotary, VFW, and Northfield Auto had a $5,000 gift for athletics at the high school, so, or activities at the high school, excuse me.
Yeah. Amazing community, and we couldn't do that, all the different things that we do without that stewardship piece that comes in partnership with these people in our community that are supporting us. So.
Yes, echo that. And then Maggie made had a question about the building. I was also going to ask that because 9 years now that I've been involved with you as a parent, right? So it's 6 years at the new building. So I'm glad to hear what the experience has been. Obviously, as Maggie alluded to, we've got some transformation happening elsewhere. I did want to note though with the graduation photo, because I know that started up again 3 or 4 years ago, having seniors come through. I think if my math is right, your first 5th grade class in the new building are going to be juniors this year, just to give a concept of how time has passed. So next year you'll actually have students who attended that building,
Yep.
which is kind of remarkable to think about.
I'm looking forward to that.
And then my computer just moved. Give me a second. I did have a question, I promise. And then finally, I wanted to hear from you after 10 years, your first decade with the district. Obviously, you had a nice career before that, but you came home. What do you see in the next 10 years that motivates you to continue to work at Greenville and lift up students and staff?
Yeah, no, I think that the next 10 years, we have a series of things that weren't on our radars 10 years ago. And so as you look at whether it's, we'll be learning about AI during the workshop week with our staff, I think, different ways that students learn differently. How can we continue to be on the leading edge of those types of things so that students who come to our school remain lifted up, engaged, and again, that what lifelong success looks like, may shift, and so we'll, continue to do that so that when students leave Greenville Park, go into the middle school, they're proud of their time there, and the families feel connected still, and whatever the new challenges are, students feel really equipped to handle those and in stride. So,
Okay. Thank you for your leadership.
thank you.
Jeff, and then Ben.
Thanks for your presentation. Good luck on a new year coming up here. My question is just kind of more general about safe routes to school, because with all the things that we did in the past years, from the development across the street, the speed limit coming around the corner, the crosswalk, is that safe? Just can you comment on flow and just kind of where we're at as far as safe routes to school?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So we have worked closely with the city, with our school resource officer, and then also with our staff to determine where the best locations are for students to cross. So as we started the building, we moved one of the cross walks to directly in front of the school and directly across from the Craywood Apartments, and that's been a big help. There's a beacon there, so there's lights for oncoming traffic to see. It is a busy road, and so down at the other end of that stretch, across from Emmaus Church, you have 2 crosswalks there that are pretty popular with Greenville Park families, and so we have crossing guard there as well. So between the beacon, the crossing guard, and then additional awareness, we do appreciate when the police officers are able to help add a visual reminder of the need to go slow in those areas. But I think the ability to have those 2 spots with the beacon have helped us be more successful. We just want to continue to remind families, and with this board presentation, just anyone in the community, that during those school hours, it is really critical to go slower in that zone. So our staff notices, and they give feedback to me and to our school resource officer when we're seeing things not work as well that way.
Sam, thank you. Appreciate it as always. Now, since you're the longest tenured elementary teacher, I was curious, or principal, sorry. I was just curious, when you look at the new curriculum, like, what stands out to you in application, either as it was being piloted or, as it's been in the classroom for a little bit now, both for reading and for math? Like, how does that show up differently experientially, for students compared to maybe what we saw 7, 8 years ago?
Sure. So I think I can speak more to the math piece on that, just knowing what the students' interactions have been like more consistently with 2 years. But I think a few things that we've been working on, focusing on, is how can students own the learning more, and so teachers have been focused on helping students talk about their thinking. That happens in the number corner, which is a 15-minute time using a calendar, and there's many opportunities for students to provide answers or talk to a partner. In the actual curriculum, I see students going a little bit more slowly to get to an answer, defending their answers, and comparing and contrasting solutions. And so that's something that at times either students were more independent in their learning, or I think I know when I was a teacher, we often worked to get the right answer, and that was the ultimate goal, and less on process. And so I think both wanting students to have those skills, and in reading, it's you want students to be able to be fluent readers, but you also want them to understand what they're reading, and to be able to talk about it, to write about it. And in math, it's very similar. We want them to be able to have really robust discussions and to be able to write about it or defend their thinking in a verbal format. So, yeah.
Excellent. Anyone else? All right, thanks, Sam.
All right, thank you.
All right, next we have Northfield Community Education School Improvement Showcase with Director of Community Education, Erin Bailey, providing the board with an overview of the successes and highlights for 25-26 and the focus areas for the upcoming school year. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Anderson. I'm delighted to be here tonight to share the school improvement plan for the Northfield Community Education Center. Sam's a hard act to follow, and he did a good job of expressing the gratitude I think those of us who have been in the district have for all of our new team members and the connections we're making and the start we are having to the school year, considering they started on July 1 and most of us have been here this summer, but it's off to a great start and delighted to have them. As we get going, you are all very familiar with the strategic plan, the vision and the benchmarks. That said, I'm just going to highlight a couple of things to help really tie in where the NCEC school improvement plan fits in with these strategic commitments. You will see it in the area of people, learner outcomes, stewardship, and partners. And Amy, if you're into photos, I tried to reflect especially some of these in the photos. Through a grant that we received last year from Tree Trust, we were able to plant 20 trees on the NCEC campus last May. NCEC students, staff, and families together planted these trees. So it was a great example of stewardship and partnerships as we came together to plant those trees. But as part of that $20,000 grant, in addition to the trees that were planted, there was a curriculum that came with it that was used not only by the students in the elementary school, in the NCEC, but also students at the elementary school got to come over and use that curriculum as well. And then in ongoing, we've had volunteers since last May, because if you know, when you plant new trees, they take a lot of watering. And so volunteers, often most of them being families of the NCEC, have been watering weekly there. So almost every picture reflects that, just so that people had an opportunity to see that, because that did happen at the end of last school year. And then when we look at the benchmarks, you are especially going to see highlighted in this plan, all children being ready for kindergarten, all students having connections to the communities, the employees reporting satisfaction in their workplace, as well as parents reporting satisfaction with their children's educational experience, and then, of course, community education providing relevant and accessible learning opportunities for all residents. So this, as similar to what Sam said, this school improvement plan does share our stories. We will also the goals that we had and how we ended on those goals last year and what we have for the goals this year, how that does align with the strategic plan, and also that is very much laid out in the narrative as well. Here's the first picture from the tree planting session. The framework of 80, 90, 100, of course, was used with this strategic plan as well, and gave good direction for how we are aligning our goals, not only in the NCEC, but also to make sure that those goals are aligning throughout our work in the district. So as we get started, our first highlight is some learning success. Hand in Hand Preschool did spend some time in last year's PLC teaching all of our classroom staff on the Teaching Strategies Gold Assessment. For those of you who have been here before, you know we implemented that assessment when we started receiving voluntary pre-K dollars, but due to the notification timeline of that, we didn't have all classrooms using that assessment. So we are really excited to have all classrooms having used that in this last year, and which really makes our data much more easily to digest and be visual for all of our staff. So in the narrative, you saw that we do have data on several different points, but I did highlight the two areas that most closely just align with what elementary schools are also going to report to you on in both the literacy skills and mathematics skills, so that you would be able to kind of see how that looks when students are leaving the Northfield Community Education Center and heading into kindergarten. What I think is, when you look at what Hand in Hand Preschool looks like, it is an integrated preschool setting. So in our integrated classrooms, we have up to 12 general education students and up to 6 students receiving special education services. And then we do have a Spark classroom as well. On a typical year, just over 2/3 of the incoming kindergarten class has come out of the Northfield Community Education Center in some fashion. And so we do have a large touch point of students that, whether that be in Hand in Hand Preschool, whether that be in Early Ventures, or whether that be in ECFE, that are rolling out of the NCEC and then matriculating into kindergarten. So those were really fun. The ability to be at that 80% for academic proficiency was a good point for us to really celebrate. And then the other highlight I just wanted to share was out of adult basic education. So in the adult basic education population, we had students reach the goal we had around measurable gains. That goal is actually set by the Minnesota Department of Education. So they met the state's goal around that. The reason that goal feels extra, like an extra highlight probably this year, is the presence of federal immigration agents did cause a pretty significant disruption in attendance for adult basic education students statewide, but also here in Northfield. And the way measurable gains get reported is you have to take a pre-test, you have to attend 40 plus hours of class, and then you have to take a post-test. So it was really, we had a number of students who never got to take that post-test this year, which had us concerned about being able to make our measurable gains. The adult basic education population in Northfield is growing immensely, and so we did still make these measurable gains, even with a number of our students that didn't necessarily complete a full year of class last year. You'll also, at the end of this presentation, be able to see, as you know, that we have a renovation project that is nearing completion of those spaces in adult basic education. So I have some pictures at the end. But this space is becoming truly an adult learning space. And some of the updates we were able to do through this renovation process will enhance the learning. So we were able to update technology for hybrid classes offerings. So when we weren't able to do that, we did it in some ways during this past winter, but we have the ability now with the technology that's been installed to update and upgrade what we are able to do in that area. We now have a dedicated GED testing space. We also have computer lab for students to complete their work outside of class time, and a clinic space to support adult learners' health needs. And so our ABE students really reported especially needing support in some vision screening and some dental health areas. And so we will be able to do those on site in this space going forward. And if you remember, these were the former kindergarten classrooms when this was Greenville Park Elementary. So it's a significant update from a kindergarten classroom space as well. Our second highlight is around school climate. So the goal we had focused on in this last year was around the employee engagement survey where employees reported on receiving feedback concerning areas for improving their performance. We had the number of staff who rated this statement as a 4 or 5 increased 5.1%. And if you can remember from this survey, a 4 or 5 rating means that the employee agrees or strongly agrees with that statement. We have worked hard to make sure that when we're in meetings, not only myself, but also coordinators are making sure to take time to give direct, meaningful, and specific feedback. So we have done rounding conversations, both in October and April of last year. We've had weekly staff shout-outs, so staff each week have the ability to leave messages to each other that are then put into a basket that is drawn each week for a front parking spot, and we do several staff recognitions throughout the year as well too. So in addition to making sure that we are taking the time to really give some direct feedback to staff. And our last highlight was around the parent engagement survey. This is a point of real pride for staff at the Northfield Community Education Center. The parent engagement survey at the NCEC has surpassed a 4.56, again on this 5-point scale, overall rating for the past 4 years. Last year it was a 4.8, which is the highest we've had since we've been giving this caregiver survey. When we used to work with Studer on this goal, their coaching of us is if you could get to a 4.5, your biggest goal was to just try to maintain that. And so the ability to maintain that actually better than a 4.5 rating now for multiple years has really been a real sense of pride for not for the staff at the Community Education Center, but also to be able to share with the Community Ed Advisory Council and families as well. So we do a list there that some of the activities that support this goal. We do make sure we are sending positive notes home to families and caregivers twice a year. We do may have regular communication with families and caregivers through multiple district platforms. And then the NCEC has multiple family engagement events throughout the year. And some of those are really designed for family engagement for those that are connected to the building. And then we also have family engagement that those are connected to the building are welcome to attend, but as is the much wider community as well, to build awareness of the NCEC, but also to build awareness of the greater district too. So as we're going forward and looking at that 80, 90, 100 framework, here are the goals that we have for this upcoming year. We are really going to focus this year in hand-in-hand preschool. Hand-in-hand preschool did go through a curriculum pilot last year and also became part of the curriculum review cycle. So really making the system an E12 system as part of looking at and aligning our work throughout early childhood through grade 12. And so because of this new curriculum that is being implemented, we're going to really focus on making sure we have good, strong data in that area. So we will continue to look at having we can report in multiple areas, as you saw. So we have those 5 areas that we can report on through the teaching strategies goal. And so that is what we will be focusing on is in the implementation of this curriculum. And ways that we will do kind of checkpoints on that. We will through observations, make sure that the lessons are being in creative curriculum are being used as intended. And so we have 2 different checkpoints in the year to make sure those curriculum lessons are being used as intended. We're also in the process this year of training staff on EduClimber. EduClimber is a data resource platform that the district is using. It has been starting to being used at the elementary school, and it gives you be able to see snapshots of students and also provide longitudinal data. So as we set these students up in early childhood, it would carry that data with them through their educational career. As I mentioned, the one PLC for classroom teachers at the NCEC will focus on this curriculum implementation. And then much like the elementary schools, we are going to have some data days at the NCEC this year to really take a pause, make sure we're looking at our data, seeing if any adjustments need to be made as we're working towards our academic goals for this year as well. And then our second goal is also around social emotional learning. You heard Sam mention about Character Strong and the new curriculum for the elementary schools. At the NCEC, we did have 2 hand-in-hand preschool classrooms pilot Character Strong and chose not to go forward with that. There are actually no preschools or early childhood programs using Character Strong. It's really designed for kindergarten on forward, but we did want to pilot it just to say we had taken a look at it. So we will actually continue with the second step curriculum. That has actually served early childhood very well. So we will continue to implement that curriculum going forward this next year. The teaching strategies goal assessment does have a way for us to measure the SEL skills. So that will be the assessment that we use to measure those skills. Some other things that we have put in place this year, we do have Fernbrook housed at the NCEC, as well as we have a social worker who now has increased time this year at the NCEC to work with some of our general education students. This is extremely important in early childhood because we often have students that will come into our setting who've never been in any childcare or preschool or educational setting before. And so they're coming in as a general education student. And if they need more support, we need a way to support that as we decide what is the best path for them going forward. So having a social worker that has some time to work with students that are not just receiving special education services is really important because we tend to have students that are entering that might become identified as students but are not necessarily when they're entering our building. Then we will also we have spent some time in our building working on a facilitated attuned interactions. This is really we have a number of staff who work in our building with parents on a frequent basis, whether that be through early childhood family education, whether that be through our birth to 3 special education services and our 3 to 5 educational services. So this is helping those interactions that happen with parents as well. And so we have found that this has also become a good support for our staff as well. These can be hard conversations sometimes, and so this has been a place to talk about how those conversations go and just find support for how to also help support families who might be going through different transitions in early childhood. And our last goals, again, are around our survey data. So both around our employee engagement survey and then also around our caregiver survey as well. So as you can see here, in our employee engagement, we will focus this year on which is very similar to what you hear Sam say, but having staff have the opportunity to provide feedback on decisions that impact their job. And so looking to increase those that agree or strongly agree with that. And again, we'll be offering rounding conversations. And much like Sam alluded to, we are talking about being clear with staff about how to give feedback on different directions and what will be the decision-making process for those decisions that are made too, so that it feels like there's an understanding of how decisions will be made. We also have several teams in the building, student support teams, building teams, the MTSS team that will also have time for collective impact when decisions do need to be made as well. And then, as I mentioned again, the caregiver satisfaction survey, we're striving to maintain a 4.5 overall rating with those that feel about how they feel about the support and care that their students and families are given now while at the NCEC. So when we have, as you all know, the Community Education Department does have an advisory council, so results of both of these surveys are shared not only with staff and caregivers, but with the advisory council as well, so that they're aware of what is taking place. And before we go to questions, this picture does reflect, as of Thursday, the furniture is now in the adult basic education space. So I could have retaken this picture again, I guess today with some furniture, with the furniture in place. I think what is hard to reflect on that picture is where you can see the yellow countertops. Those are kindergarten height countertops. So about maybe here on all of us. So on the right side, you will actually see there's adult height countertops. There's the furniture all matches. It's not a hodgepodge of furniture that we have carried with us. We also moved, much like Greenville opened in 2020, we moved into the NCEC space in 2020. And if you remember, the adult basic education space is one of the places we did not touch on our way in. So in addition to fixing this area, other things that are not so notable in the picture, but we did fix some piping. And so in the sink that you can see there, you can drink the water out of it now. So we fixed some piping in these places. There was a substantial remodel, and we will be holding an open house, but I do hope if you ever want to see it, that you do stop by. We did have our MDE grant site visit today, a very successful grant site visit, and so we are on the back half of completing this renovation project, which is really exciting. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Erin. That's terrific. I wanted to say a couple of things before I pass it on to the other board members. And one is just, I appreciated hearing about how much the work includes educating our parent caregiver community, because that is a support to the staff and that is a support to the students. So that was really great to hear. And then also that I'm sure Sam would say, you are a tough act to follow. Thanks so
Well, we'll reverse it next year. No, we're just kidding.
much. Board members, do you have a question or a comment? Okay, Maggie and then Amy.
Thanks, Erin.
Yeah.
It was really great to see those really strong academic proficiency numbers for Hand in Hand. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what space is available in Hand in Hand, or like how people could get involved with that program?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Much like what is moving through the elementaries, we also have had an impact of declining enrollment at Hand in Hand Preschool. We are down from when we moved into the building in the number of students. And really, the biggest contributor, when I look at the birth rates in Wright County and things, the biggest contributor is less births are happening in Rice County. So if people are interested, we are still enrolling for Hand in Hand Preschool. We will enroll even after school starts, as long as we still have space available. So for Hand in Hand Preschool, they can just contact the Community Education Department or stop in the building. But we do have some spaces, not in every section, but we do have some spaces left in preschool if people are interested. As far as childcare, we have limited spaces in early ventures. Wouldn't be a full-time spot left in anywhere right now, but some limited spaces. And early childhood family education will start about 2 weeks after the start of school, and some limited spaces in those classes as well. Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, Erin, for your presentation. As always, I'm always amazed all the things that are under your umbrella. And I was listening to Claudia's comment, and I just realized you're also kind of training our parents, because you're the first group that they might have contact with the school district, and hopefully you're teaching them how to interact with the district will carry through for years and years.
We're hoping we're the first place that they do interact with the district. We just, for example, we pulled the Baby Talk numbers of this last week. So Baby Talk is a free class for new parents or second-time parents and their child that is up to 12 weeks. And so we had over 50 parents go through that for a second time this year, and I think the number is over 100 of the first-time parents that have gone through there. And so we really do hope that this is where we start them, and that they do get their experience at the NCEC that builds then into the rest of their educational career.
I know when I was a parent that the parents that I met in ECFE were sort of my cohort all the way through, and a lot of them, we all volunteered for everything and on the way through. So you're also
Building friendships.
and connections. But I do have a question.
Yes.
So I love what you're doing with the adult basic education space. It's about time that the alphabet is no longer on the floor, even though maybe it helped. But my question is the 80, 90, 100 framework the right framework for adult basic education? Because there's such a different beast than everything
Probably
else that
not.
we're doing.
I mean, we had, I think last year in the goals, if what I reported on in our first highlights, the NCEC and the community education department, for that matter, is pretty broad, right? And so last year, the goal was really to try to have all different areas of that building be able to see themselves in the school improvement plan, which is great. And sometimes we have years that we're going to focus really in one or two areas too. It does not mean those other programs don't have goals. They just aren't necessarily reflected in the school improvement plan. And so I think with adult basic education, we don't measure their SEL skills, right? That's not something we measure. The state gives us the goal that we're supposed to meet for measurable skills gain. So it's not, is it an 80% of something? No, it's not. So I think it is, it's good for all of you and the community to know that those programs exist and that this is, where they are at in the goals that are set for them. And so we will probably continue to do check-ins on them through the school improvement plan process, but you may not see them reflected every year. And so they come in there as a highlight, but that, I would say the 80, 90, 100 framework itself is a better for an E12 system.
Right, who are in school full-time and not just coming in sometimes. So I invite you to rethink what works for ABE, and maybe next time you talk with us, have a suggestion of what you think would be a better approach. And I do have one last comment. I wanted to thank you for telling us what to look for in the photos. And as I saw the trees being planted, I love the photos. And I thought, what a great metaphor kind of for education. And you're planting trees or ideas or learning that's going to grow. So I see it also, all these trees are a metaphor for what everything else you're doing.
Thank you.
Right, Ben.
Aaron, thanks as always. And, I think one of the things I've come to appreciate is that community education is kind of one of those things that makes Northfield, right? Like everybody gets the little catalog. When my kids were younger, it's like, are we going to be in the catalog? Like, there we are, we're on the cover. Isn't that awesome? So I was just looking at the website too. It's just I love the fact that, we just showcase everything about what NC or community education does. So thank you for leading it. It's a true resource and one of those things that makes us unique, I think. Just a follow-on question to Maggie, and that was, for early ventures, it sounds like full-time we're still waitlisted. I was just looking at the website. Have you seen the demand or that waitlist decrease, or is there much of a change there demographically? Or
That's a great question. So when we open registration, we always open registration in February for current families. So if you're currently enrolled in Hand-in-Hand Preschool and you're currently enrolled in Early Ventures, you have a 2-week window to keep your slots or to notify us you're not going to keep your slots. And then we open up for public registration in March. So when we open it up in March, that's our big, that's the biggest point of the wait list. And so it's always the biggest in the infant and toddler area. And because that is where Northfield as a whole has the least amount of slots. There's certainly more slots that open up kind of for 2.5 and older as a community as a whole. So that we always have significant wait lists there. That where the wait list is now is not the same because people have to find care. And so when you look at the wait list then at the start of the school year, there's still kids on it, but it's not certainly at the same size as it was in March. And so when we have some shifting, which we always do over, June, July, and August, we continue to call people off the wait list, but we will get people that will tell us that they have found alternate care because they need it and they can't wait to see what if.
I guess, have we seen though a kind of a less of a length of that?
I would say
wait
it's,
list
yes,
initially?
it's a little less than you would have seen probably 3 years ago.
So it kind of tracks that.
Yep, tracks with everything you're seeing.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Erin.
Yes, thank you.
All right, item C is our superintendent's 2026-27 focus areas, and I will let Dr. Anderson update us on that.
Well, thank you, Chair Gonzalez-George. Of course, as you heard from our wonderful and trusted presenters tonight, that our vision is that we're preparing every student for lifelong success by developing critical thinkers who are curious and ready to engage in society. And you also heard, I think, in the cadence of our leaders' testimony tonight, this notion of alignment, both overtly referred to, but also embedded in the content. And certainly alignment is sort of that hidden curriculum that we're going for in our system, really always, but it's been a super important point for us as we prepare for this academic campaign. And so we want to align to the strategic plan, of course. We want to align to the commitments that we've made. And we really want to align to some common efforts across the work this year so that we're building on each other's successes, sharing those successes that we're finding, and then helping to thought partner and problem solve in areas that are incongruent with where we're wanting to go. So it's in that spirit that I offer the superintendent focus areas for this upcoming season of leadership in our schools. It's supposed to be aligned to the things that are in that strategic plan, and it's supposed to be aligned to the things you're hearing leaders talk about when they come here with their goal areas and their successes and their next work. And in your packet, you can see there's 4 areas. I know Northfield in particular and the esteemed Dr. Hillman sometimes have had more than 4 focus areas. Not only is that illustrative of his long tenure, but his excellent service to our community. And I've been encouraged by members of this board to keep the list manageable, so to speak. And so I appreciate that regular encouragement because it's a high bar that Dr. Hillman has set and that this community has high expectations. And so I offer that as preamble to the notion of having 4 focus areas. Some of you have even suggested fewer might be advantageous. I noted that for future years. I also want to point out that I'm trying to pay attention to superintendent mentors, and certainly Dr. Hillman is one, but there are others in the field that I pay attention to, and one of those folks I follow said that in this person's view, after a long, successful series of tenures as a superintendent in a couple different districts, that a superintendent really has 3 jobs: set the vision, build the team, and make sure the district has what it needs to succeed. And then the rest can really be trusted to the capable people that you've just heard from 2 of this evening doing that work. And so these 4 superintendent goal areas are my attempt to hold myself to that discipline this year. Certainly not a catalog of everything that I or we as a leadership team plan to touch, but really just the focus areas for moving us from where we are to the next space and continuous improvement. I'm just so thankful about the strong tradition of continuous improvement. The other contextual cue I give is that we know that modern superintendent goals are supposed to, at least in Minnesota, align to MSBA standards, that it's not random acts of intended improvement, but it's aligned, again, alignment to standards. And so you'll see in the document, alignment to MSBA standards, alignment to our strategic plan, anchored in an objective, and then with draft evidence that we would revisit mid-year and certainly at the end of the year too. So briefly, goal 1 is related to this transition management season. On August the 12th with leaders, we investigated transition models. How do you lead transition? How might you intentionally sponsor a process to bring people through transition? Again, transition can happen with new people. We've got that. New efforts, we've got that. And it's a rapidly changing world. We've got that. And so one objective is related to Standard 3 and our strategic plan alignment of communication and partnerships. Benchmark 8, all employees report satisfaction in the workplace. Benchmark 9, all parents report satisfaction with their children's educational experience. That's an attempt to do alignment there, and the objective embedded is to build trust and mutual understanding with people outside and really inside the school system. And there's suggested evidence there. A second goal area is around building strong instructional services and human resources teams and processes. We have new leaders in each of those areas. I heard Director Bailey say, we're excited to have those new leaders. I take her at her word, and that's not a random statement meant to garner support with the boss or the governors. I think it's based on early interactions of collaboration, which I have plenty of evidence is happening in our system, even from today. And so this area of not only hiring the right people at the right time to get on the bus and do the right work and put them in the right seats, it's also to set the conditions so that the processes that they're in charge of or for which they're responsible are moving in alignment to the outcomes that we seek and our strategic plan and what this community expects. And so the standards, according to MSBA, are human resources and teaching and learning. The strategic plan alignment is related to people, learner outcomes, equity, and stewardship. And then the benchmarks are related to students graduating from our system with the plan to reach their full potential, and employees reporting satisfaction in the workplace. The overall objective in this goal area then is to strengthen both of these departments so they can support staff and student achievement, not just administer it. So many systems administer it, and they might administer it well, but we want outcomes of continuous improvement. So an example notion related to that is that curriculum high fidelity is the floor, but every student should get access to what we say. We're ensuring that they learn. So that's a second area, building strong HR and instructional services work. And again, there's example potential artifacts there, from things like a recruitment and retention plan to a unified instructional framework, which I've received some queries from some of you related to. And we're happy to spend more time on what that could look like. We have an early draft visual that we've generated and are in the middle of imagining the undergirding principles. A third goal area or area of focus is related to nurturing a cohesive district leadership team. I talked about referencing that this is the most significant turnover in 17 years in the Northfield Public Schools and people, perhaps in processes. We want to capitalize on the good traditions, efforts, and strong momentum, again, that was illustrated in the first two presentations this evening. And we have an opportunity. I've heard Dr. Hillman talk about it. I certainly would sponsor the idea that we have an opportunity, really unprecedented, to take a look again at the things we take for granted, but also a look again with experiences and expertise sets that are fresh from the outside. And that, to me, is an exciting proposition and indeed part of why I was interested to apply for this role. So MSBA alignment is related to governance and human resources. The strategic plan alignment is related to people stewardship and satisfaction in the workplace. And objectives embedded there is that you have a cohesive leadership team across buildings and departments, not separate ones, anchored to 3 words introduced at our first retreat. Those words, I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, are connection, capacity, and clarity. And each of you received a trustee handout card that you're invited to look at right now as an artifact that can help you better understand the kinds of work we did on August the 12th, and indeed that you can count on throughout this year and beyond. So each leader was invited to place this card in a prominent location near their workstation. Oh, look, Dr. Reichel has hers with her. This was not planned. This was not planned. But what you can see is that we know that in the same way that on Wednesday mornings, adults in our system have a chance to collaborate in ways that can accelerate the effectiveness of their craft, the acceleration is directly related to the degree to which folks are working on common things. So if I try a common strategy or have a common content on which I'm working, I can compare with you the results of how that's going. How did it go and how do you know? And then we can problem solve together, we can thought partner, we can accelerate each other's effectiveness. This is the power of the PLC. Sometimes I've seen in systems people commiserate, they collaborate, they complain, they coordinate, but they don't co-labor. And so we want to co-labor around common strategy and common content, and so this is both of these things is what this artifact is. So we're focusing as leaders on connection and connections. So connection is the practice, connections is what we build. We're focused on learning, capacity, synonym to learning. We are all lead learners, and then we ought to identify as such and behave as such. And then thirdly, clarity. How are we ever more clear about what it is that we're trying to do together? And so many of the questions that you've authored tonight to our leaders are related to this third C, getting clearer, trying to ask questions that help move people forward on their purpose and really the purpose of the organization. So this goal area 3 is related to the 3 C's, a cohesive district leadership team. And as if that's not enough, there's focus area 4, which is related to creating and facilitating work groups around the forces that have been handed to us. So one is the strategic plan, originally scheduled to be revisited in 2027. It's not a timeline I created or our leadership team created, but has been handed to us, and so we have the chance to revisit what are the strengths of this strategic plan, how might it be renewed, and in what ways might it be updated to recognize the realities of today. And similarly, the world is working with a new development that none of us planned on and none of us decided upon, but that is artificial intelligence. And if our vision as a district is to develop critical thinkers who are seeking lifelong success and are curious and ready to engage in our society, then they have to have some proficiency related to artificial intelligence, and the adults who serve them must have commensurate proficiency with those tools so they can do that work for our children. So having work groups around those things so we can capitalize on the values of this system and this community, but realize and deal with these things that we didn't generate but that have been handed to us would be the focus area 4. Again, aligned to the strategic plan, aligned to MSBA standards. And you can see at the end of the packet document, again, there's things like Reimagine Northfield, there's things like fiscal stewardship. We have our chief financial officer here, as we usually do. Any work that this board directs us to do, whether that's related to when school start times are situated moving forward or not, we'll do all that work. But the focus areas captured here are meant to move the work forward in those 4 targeted buckets. And with that, I'd take any questions or invite any feedback. And I'd say I appreciate the feedback I've already received.
Excellent. Thank you so much for presenting that. I love the artifact from the district meeting with the administrators. And yeah, I appreciate the format that you presented to us tonight. And I wanted to also especially thank you for the idea that you want people to support and not just administer. That's great. Board members, do you have any comments or questions at this time?
Thank you. Appreciate it taking us through that. Just a quick in the weeds question, Dr. Anderson. When you talk about the staff training for AI that's going to begin at the end of the month, what is that? What does that look like?
So, thank you. It's a training that I sponsored in other districts, helping educators from where they are consider what might be next. And so it's okay to be right where you are in your practice and in your disposition with regard to AI, but it's not okay to stay there because we're all learners in our system. So the training is differentiated in that we all are exploring AI 101. What are the first things that this means for you in your practice? What questions do you have? What challenges are you being presented with? And takes whatever that reality is and then applies skill sets and mindsets that every educator can consider, work in like groups to apply, and then some work time related to it. So it's a capacity building exercise. And one thing we found is aligned to the research that's come out of the first forays with AI learning for educators. And that is that AI tools have been helping educators in terms of efficacy, and that's been the primary way where educators have benefited so far. So the main complaint you get repeatedly throughout space and time from educators is there's not enough time to do the work. I don't have enough time. I would provide more targeted feedback. I would do this, I would do that if I had more time. There's not enough time. And that is an example of how AI is an opportunity. It can compress time for educators in responsible, ethical ways according to best practice. And so there will be some early wins in that training related to that. And it will recognize the very valid, legitimate concerns folks have about AI too. It'll give them a place to be validated and affirmed. Really build bridges to those educators to say, look, we're going to work on a process that cares for your concerns. It won't be a one and done. We know that the best professional learning is job embedded and ongoing, so this won't be a one and done situation. It's an introduction to being on a journey where we're learning together in a learning season.
Right.
Just a quick comment or two. Really appreciate the approach, Dr. Anderson, to your goals. I think 4 is a good number. I don't know, 3 is might be too few. But I appreciate the structure and the approach to this. I love the alignment to MSBA standards as well as, of course, our own strategic plan. And I'm glad you shared about the quarterly leadership retreats. I know I asked you about that last week. I thought it was important to share among the board and those watching. So thank you for getting ahead on sharing that. So look forward to December. See where we are mid-year.
Thank you.
Amy?
I want to second what Corey said. I think this is a good list of goals. I think 4 is a good number. I like how you have the right balance of specificity and broadness. So you have wiggle room in there as you are here for your first year and you can see how things work and you can sort of modify them without actually changing anything. So excellent job.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, as a reminder, this will be an item for individual action at our next meeting, and also we will continue working with MSBA for this year with Dr. Anderson, and we will be having a transition workshop that we will be attending, and I'm working with Kelly and Amy Jordan from MSBA on getting that workshop scheduled for us to attend. All right, we'll move on to item D, which is our later start times discussion. And we do have a work session tonight. The community is invited to stay for that, where we will further discuss this item. But I'll give space for Dr. Anderson to update us on the survey.
Thank you, Claudia. I appreciate that. Again, in your board packet, there is information related to the later start time initiative. And what you have reference to there is some of that attempt to capture the context of this conversation that this board has been having for 8 months. You can see there's different pieces highlighted to help paint that picture. Of course, anytime you try to capture 8 months of robust consideration and conversation, there's the potential where you haven't perfectly captured. And so I'll offer the caveat that as I work to grow my capacity to understand the context of where we've been, where we are now, and then to try to support this group in what we might do or look at next, I attempted to capture this, but I understand, even from some wonderful feedback from folks on this board, things that might have been clearer or could have been better prepared. But having said that, I'll characterize some of the things for our public as well. So one of the things we agreed to come back with was update from the survey that the community participated in. We always appreciate the engagement of the community. In the front and center of your memo there, it says that 1,021 community survey responses were collected. And for your help in processing what that might mean, the last district newsletter was sent to 4,558 email addresses, and the system removes duplicate email addresses. For example, parents of more than one child only receive one email. And based on these numbers, approximately 22% of recipients responded, and that could mean that one household responded more than once. Both parents, for example, in a two-parent household. So that gives you a sense of the response rate. Also highlighted at the beginning is a transportation nod that in fiscal year 25, our cost per student is somewhat below state averages. And I'm thankful Val is here to help keep me accurate on any other statements I might make, but I'm going to try to make a few statements so I don't make any more errors related to that. And then also the handout for you highlighted that 87% of the survey respondents find keeping the current schedule as an acceptable notion. And there's a lot of context that is required when putting that together. For example, in the memo, hindsight is 2020. There should not be all caps in keeping. So as we use tools to help us package these things, I would not capitalize that because I don't wish to overemphasize any particular point in the memo. So thanks for feedback about that. So why does this matter? For the community, folks who are just getting reacclimated to this, adolescent sleep research is pointed, and this board has studied the notion that 8:30 a.m. is a meaningful threshold for secondary school start times. And the board has invested 8 months of data gathering, community input, cost analysis to test whether that change makes sense for this community. And so when we do a study session, we'll unpack this further, but for the purposes of this business setting, this is a summary, and as I said, an attempt to capture that. So where have we been so far? There's some key milestones. In December of 2025, Dr. Kyla Wallstrom, whom I know personally, full disclosure, from the University of Minnesota, presented 30 years of adolescent sleep research to the board, again identifying 8:30 as a research-backed tipping point for meaningful benefit. At that time, the board directed staff to begin a structured decision process. Here we have used the IROD framework for that, as created by Dr. Webb, who wrote a book about home run leadership, sponsoring the IROD process. I also know Dr. Webb, full disclosure. In January 2026, staff brought illustrative bell schedule scenarios, including athletics and activities dismissal data, student transportation data. That all happened at a work session, including the finding that 760 Northfield High School students are of age 16 plus, but only of about 500 of which are accounted for by parking permits or bus ridership. In April of 26, staff presented 3 framing options: starting elementary earlier than secondary, shifting all levels to a later start time, or maintaining a current schedule. And included in that data share was first pass cost estimates, and asked the board two guiding questions. Are the benefits to students worth the transportation cost? And what guardrails might the board set for staff? In May of this year, Benjamin Buss, our strategic transportation partner, delivered a detailed route level cost modeling of the two scenarios. And there's different costs associated with that. I will defer to Val Mertersdorf about some of those specifics as I become ever more fluent with those cost structures. I attempted to capture them here. And then as recently as June, there was this community survey, and I just shared some summary about that. And so where are we now? There's no proposed change concept that earned a majority of outright support. There were varying levels of support. For example, 58 to 63% were in favor of, had demonstrated support for any of the change concepts. And it is our finding that district staff were consistently somewhat less supportive of the change concept than families were. There's a chart that attempts to summarize those levels of support. That outright support line highlighted in yellow gives you a sense of how that's characterized. Where is their outright support? And again, no proposed change concept earned a majority of outright support. In other words, there's mixed feelings about it. In the memo, it goes on to talk about the top concerns raised in open comments. A lot of those are related to cost and budget impact, for example. And then the cost picture is covered there. Again, our cost per student remains relatively below some peer district average districts in our state. There's operational findings. You can see what those are. An example, 43% of our activities, events already require dismissal at or before 2:45, and 57% of those require a bus departure before 3:32, which has some implications. And then there's a chart about schedule concepts under consideration. So switching start times, shifting all levels, and then elementary ends later there according to that. So again, I've been doing some self-disclosure statements. I was a part of a shift in school start times in Edina a number of years ago as a building principal. I served at the middle school level, and we made the change, and it was similar. My experience tells me it was similar in terms of support. Unclear, different stakeholders or interested parties had different orientations to this. So this was not surprising to me to get a mixed sense from the community data. In fact, it felt very familiar. I will say that I heard anecdotally 3 years of complaints. As a middle school principal, those complaints seem to ebb at the end of a 3-year cycle. You could theorize that that's because the new incoming sixth graders in year 4 did not have any experience with what was before, and so it was less difficult for them to consider a shift. But staff, percentage of staff complained for about that same amount of time as well, and they had been mostly alive in the middle school before and after. So a preview of our work session today is we'll tackle a number of questions related to what we might do next. And no option has been yet selected. The board's internal decision IROD worksheet will be accessible during our work session, which is a capture of the work and the sentiments that have been logged in that work sheet heretofore. But options and a recommended decision have not been finalized, and today's work session is designed to continue to further our ability on this issue. With that, I'll rest and turn it back over to the board.
Okay, thank you very much, and we will continue with this conversation after our regular board meeting. So I'm not going to take, yes, Ben.
Just a clarifying question as we prep for that, because I was looking at I just had one quick question that might save us a little time when we get there. But one was just let me find it. The schedule concepts under consideration. Were those the ones, like if we look at concept 2 with like the high school and middle school starting at 8:57 and 8:50. Is that what was in the survey, or is that different?
I think there's an
Oh, there's an updated version. Well, all right.
So,
That answers my question.
again, my apologies for that error, and I'm glad we have careful reading the reason for the table files because we made an error there.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
Corey?
I have a question related to that. Just again, appreciate Dr. Anderson. You've been in this role for 8 weeks, so we've talked about for 8 months, so it takes time to catch up. So it happens. Not worried about that. What I do have a question is more of a process question, and it's probably for Kelly. So with table files, typically they're uploaded to the website. It's usually an additional context piece. Since this is replacement copy, I'm wondering for people who go to our website in the future, because it's already live, how do we make sure they find the right information? Because they're going to look at the board packet and see the incorrect information in some of those cells. I don't think this is something we've addressed before, but I think in this particular discussion, it's pretty important to make sure people who visit the website find the correct information, since to Dr. Anderson's point, in his experience and what we've seen so far is it's not going to be everyone's on board with every, the one choice.
If it's okay with the board and if it's okay with Dr. Anderson, I can replace that file in the regular board packet, and you would just know that I'm doing that it's in the table file, and I'm going to update with the corrected file for just this portion of the board meeting in the board packet. So,
I'm comfortable with that. I think that makes sense.
I would be comfortable with that.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Corey. Okay, so we'll move on to item 6, and that is our consent agenda. As a reminder, there were some personnel items in that table file added to the consent grouping. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from the consent grouping for separate consideration? Is there a motion to approve the consent grouping?
Motion.
Thank you, Maggie. Second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Item 7 is our items for individual action. We do not have any tonight, so we'll move on to item 8, which is our items for information. And first, we have construction update number 30. Superintendent Anderson, would you like to give us an update?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Briefly, as I think we're all familiar with now, there's a Reimagine Northfield High School website where folks can go every week to see updates. This week's updates are related to things like the water main excavation and piping installation has continued. The old tennis courts and basketball courts have been prepared for temporary asphalt paving and striping. There's backfilling activities that continue over the underground storm structure to prepare for parking lot subgrade work. The geothermal lateral piping work with mobilizations and excavations are starting in the existing building and working their way out to the geothermal field. There's demolition activities happening, such as the mechanical and electrical removals, which have started inside the building in the auxiliary gym and in one of the Phi Ed spaces. Sidewalks are also being prepared and poured to serve as a walkway into the main entrance and activity entrance. And as a reminder, when you go to the Reimagine website that you can get to live, it has these construction updates, as you can see. I think I'm presenting the correct way. As you can see in the graphic there on the website. And we're right in the middle of why that live website update is important, because you can see there's a road closure announcement. So due to water main work on Raider Drive, the following temporary changes for today through hopefully tomorrow, but just in case it takes longer, through Wednesday, are illustrated here with a map for folks to check out. So there's traffic rerouting. Some folks have experienced that today. Doors we're used to using are closed. We illustrate where parking can happen. And for example, on something related to like student pictures, on August 24th, which is tomorrow, that will still be in the lower cafeteria, but the entrance to the building will need to be through main entrance at door 1. And again, the map is updated to be illustrative of that. I just wanted to highlight that. And again, you can get to links of the every 13 minutes refreshed camera angles of the progress and Again, you can look at last week's drone flight if you'd like. And so I wanted to highlight those things.
All right, thank you. Board members, do you have a comment or question for Dr. Anderson on this update? Okay, Maggie.
I was just going to say also, I appreciate the banner across the top of the main Northfield Schools website, which does also mention that there's a road closure. So if folks aren't digging into the construction page, they can just go straight to the main page to get that announcement. I think that's really helpful.
Good point.
All right, Corey and then Amy.
I just want to highlight something really quick that was shared at our last district meeting based on the construction project, and that was that NCRC is being a solid partner of ours and letting us use their parking lot after 4:30 p.m. So I just want to highlight that since we're looking at the map, and then also it's my understanding that the district office has also emailed neighbors in the community, or not emailed, mailed neighbors in the community to make them aware that there may be some additional parking on the nearby streets during this. So just wanted to highlight that from a good community partner and being transparent with those affected.
Really appreciate that. And Val, how many folks did we send the mailing to?
I believe it was 94.
94 neighbors. So I appreciate Vice Chair Butler bringing that up.
Good. Amy.
Well, I appreciate the update. I appreciate the map that's online for people, but I'm also thinking about the people who are not looking online, who are just hopping in their car and driving. And I haven't tried to get into the high school this summer. I'm wondering about signage, physical signage, and how that's working and how much we have of it.
Yeah, we had a meeting with Knutson and Wold today, and each week we have a check-in with them. And last week, in particular, we focused on the signage issue. And my experience is they've been very responsive to that. I don't know if you'd add any context to that, Val, based on your interactions with that process.
Yes, they have been great partners, which is why we brought them back for this construction project. But I did actually, right prior to this meeting, drop my daughter off at Rock Fields for softball. And there's a giant orange sign right when you would turn into Raider Drive that says, no access to the high school, please access Division Street. So that was our feedback. Like, I get that you're going to block the roadway in here, but could we just avoid people turning in here at all? And they already had that sign up, and literally that was discussed at a meeting last week. So they have done everything we can to make sure people are aware of which ways to go. But there is a giant sign there right now. So, yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else? Right, then we will move on to item B, items for information, and that is the staff breakfast and program. Northfield Public Schools will welcome back staff for the 26-27 school year on Tuesday, September 1st from 7:30 to 10 at the middle school, and the board is invited to that event. Our future meetings are Monday, September 14th, a regular board meeting, Monday, September 28th, another regular board meeting, both in this boardroom. Tuesday, October 13th, a regular board meeting moved to Tuesday due to Indigenous Peoples Day. And that is all of the business that we have for our meeting tonight. And so we'll adjourn the regular meeting and then move into a work session after a brief break. And Corey will be facilitating that work session. Is there a motion to adjourn our regular board meeting?
Motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there a second? Second. Okay, thank you, Amy. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned, and we'll move into our work session shortly.